Um, but yeah, so for those of you who aren't familiar, who only know this as a stream, we've actually been doing a podcast for the past 3 years.
3 years! Can you
Yeah,
believe it?
as of like October 27th, 2017, which was 1 week ago.
And so that was, once again, to reiterate, that was the release of episode 0, not the release of episode 1, right?
No, it's both. It's
Oh,
both.
it is both. Okay.
Yeah, because we recorded. So again, some background here. We decided a long time ago to have a podcast, and I'll get into the context and the fun story I told last time that Spencer was shocked to hear that we'll get into in a second. But yeah, we recorded an episode in like March or May, something like early spring or late spring, and you can listen to it. It's still up there. All the episodes, we have not deleted any
I
episodes.
don't recommend listening to them, but
Yeah, we don't recommend it.
what we should do is, I've seen other podcasts do this. They take the oldest episodes like out of their main feed and then make like a special like lost episodes thing that you can find if you like look, but it's not there just to be found.
Yeah. Man, maybe. I mean, maybe for the fourth year when we have like way more content, because
Yeah.
I'm interested because this will be we started doing bi-weekly or bi-weekly episodes starting in June when we launched a Patreon, I think. But next year will be our first, and once we go through all of next year, 2021 will be the first year we do an episode every 2 weeks. So that'll be interesting to see.
Or if you're a patron, that's our
More,
plug.
yeah, at least one more a month if you're a patron. But what was I saying? Oh
We
shit.
started 3 years ago.
Yeah. So in March we recorded an episode. We were both in person, which as you guys know now, for the past like after episode like 8 or 9, me and Spencer have not been in the same room for a majority of the podcast. You guys know, like we record this through the magic of the internet, just like through the magic of streaming, where all four of us are not in the same room. Believe it or not, MJ is also not in the room, and I am not looking at him to not be on mic when we are recording the podcast.
We're not in the studio as much as you might think.
I know.
Yeah,
You're supposed to do stuff like that after
studio.
like 10 years. You're not supposed to do it after like 3.
What we should really do is start every episode with a little Foley of us like
shuffling,
like
stuff.
walking up and then opening the door. It's like, we're walking into the Style and Direction offices, dusting off.
Hey MJ, what's going on? Don't get on mic, bro. Like,
you hogging all the coffee this morning?
Don't get on mic. You see the footage of me inside the office.
We walk by the room where we keep Dan Harmon, who is still with us. We got all that kind of stuff.
Eventually we're gonna get like a Howard Stern style, like, live stream going on, where we're gonna all have different cameras. You're gonna see all of us.
And I'm gonna look at MJ. He's gonna have like the soundboard. He'll play stuff whenever I want.
When are we gonna get our whack pack? That's what we need.
That's it. We need to have Ethan burping and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first episode we both recorded it on my laptop. In Spencer's,
in my like dining room.
I'm not sure. Okay, according to this, I might have just started working at Ascot Chang, but back then I only worked part-time, so I only worked like 3 days a week. And so I had a lot of free time. So this was like I just stayed over at Spencer's house for like a Friday or like over the weekend or something, and we recorded this podcast episode. I don't remember what we talked about. I think we gave like a brief description of like who we are,
Yeah, and then we were like, this is gonna be, I haven't listened to it ever, but I know that one of the comments we got was like, oh, you guys were like afraid to like make jokes, like I don't know.
Oh, that's crazy to hear.
So yeah, I haven't listened to it. I don't think it's gonna be very representative of what the podcast is.
Yeah, I was gonna say that a girl that I was friends with, I'm not gonna say much more about that. But she did say like, "Hey, I'm listening to your podcast and it's crazy." And I'm like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm like on episode 4." And I'm like, "That's even crazier. Don't start there."
Yeah.
Like I'm looking back here. So yeah, the episode.
I never start podcasts from the beginning. Like, I mean, I don't usually listen to narrative podcasts. But I'm never assuming it's like, oh, their early stuff is gonna be good. Like, I always assume it's gonna be shitty.
I actually started Mabim Bam from the beginning.
Really?
And I powered through the first like 20 episodes till it got better. But I mean it's kind of fun for like lore reasons, and we don't really introduce the concept of lore to like or even like recurring jokes until like maybe like 4 episodes in or something, you know. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a fun trip. I'm looking back at it now, so I just opened up on iTunes. The pilot was released on September 6th, and the first episode came out October 28, 2017, but we didn't really promote it till October of 28, 2017.
October 28th. How scary.
I know.
Yeah.
Spooky time. And then our
I
next
bet we didn't
episode,
do any Halloween themed things for that.
uh, I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah. Our next episode was 2 weeks later on for after Dapper Day, which was after our Did we do presentation that time? I think I'm not sure if we did yet.
I don't remember.
It's so a couple of times I've been asked to do a presentation for Dapper Day. One of the first times, actually no, I think at this point we did the video for Dapper Day. We had our friend Mac do it.
Oh, that's right. You did like a series of like video,
Maybe I'll
like
find a way to-
instructional things or something.
Yeah,
or...
yeah. Might be a big thing for Kiyoshi didn't hear this story last time. But basically for Dapper Day, for those of you who don't know, Dapper Day is an organization that's dedicated to bringing style and community together, and they got their start by doing outings at Disneyland because Disneyland was made in 1955, and the concept art had people dressed up, and the founder, who is like an art guy, he was like, hey, it'd be cool if we did that, and so he started that like unofficially, and it's still not officially affiliated with Disney, but there's a lot of like Disney fandom crossover kind of stuff. In terms of
there's like a lot of
audience, not the official thing, the audience.
If you don't, I guess a little quick extra piece of context. If you don't live in Orlando or Southern California, you might not know this, but there are a shit ton of unofficial Disney holidays. And Dapper Day is like one of the bigger ones that's like more recognized by like the staff and stuff.
Yeah, and probably the most accessible for people.
Yeah.
Like not everyone has a fucking steampunk costume.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I've done a couple of presentations for them, and that I think that year they asked me to do a video on like the basics of menswear because, believe it or not, and unfortunately we were asked if we could feature the founder of Dapper Day on the podcast, which didn't work out because
timing. Just like
timing wise, and we also planned out all the content till the end of the year. This is, again, this is the first time we've had to do episodes every 2 weeks, so we were planning on everything. We have a good interview / discussion with Aldrich coming out in a couple, at like the end of the month, which will be fun. First interview discussion like that outside of the stream in a year.
In a while, yeah.
Well, I guess technically we had Young Chomsky.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be fun to have him on next year, probably to promote the next Dapper Day, which don't know if we're gonna attend. So because of how COVID is, especially in Orange County.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was still fun. And again, I'm not sure how many of you guys look through, or how long of you guys have listened to the podcast. Maybe you guys started like last week or whatever. But yeah, we used to do a lot of interviews.
That was our bread and butter.
Yeah. So
it was like we were like, okay, because that was the only thing we could think of, because I don't remember if this was part of the thing that got cut off, but we were kind of early in the menswear podcast game. When we had the idea of this, we like were looking for previous examples,
and there wasn't any.
There were like a couple that had like there were a couple, but like really not. Like Blammo hadn't started yet, which I think was the first big one.
I think the thing is we recorded the first episode and people were like knew about that we were planning to do a podcast, but then Blammo started I think later that same year.
We're not saying, to be clear, we're not saying, oh, Blammo like stole our shit or whatever.
No, of course not. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean it just was like there was a time even Put the Sun had like a mini article about like how menswear podcasting like
it was popping up in like 2017, which makes sense because that's when like podcasting was just like really blowing up into the mainstream.
Yeah, exactly. And I think at the time, like by the time that Put This On like wrote about it or like included this on a list of podcasts, which is again great. Thanks to Not sure who compiled it, Dan or Pete or Derek. Was it what?
I don't quote me on that. I don't know. Thank you. Put this on for including our podcast in that listicle.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. Okay, so they wrote about this in 2019. Okay, well they didn't include. Okay, so I mentioned podcasts to check out with articles of interest, Blammo. And this was in 2019, so this is already when we were in full swing. But yeah, I mean, High Snobiety and Hypebeast have had stuff. Handcut Radio started, like 2 years ago. Failing Upwards was also kind of, maybe, I don't know when exactly it came out. Maybe Kiyoshi, do you know when Failing Upwards came out?
I want to say like, I mean, their early like SoundCloud shit was like 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay,
Like,
that makes sense.
it's been going on for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I know, like, so there's a lot of podcasts up, at least at the time. And same thing with like me and the blog. There's not really that much of similar content that we found, because like I feel like Kyoshi writes a blog, the Grange is a blog, but like the way that I do it, I'm not saying I'm better. I'm saying like it was just a way, like the way I do it was so different, and what I was imagining from this podcast was also like not really a thing, And again, I'm sure most of you guys know this, but most podcasts out there are interview based. Like,
Yeah.
It's
that's an easy way to do it. It's a good
yeah,
medium for an interview-based format.
it's like a talk show or radio show. And even think about it. Think about that. About like even like listening on the radio, like Kevin and like, I guess you guys don't know outside of me, Spencer and MJ, but Kevin and Bean, like I would listen to that like on my way to school or when I was commuting back when I worked at Ascot Chang, and like they'd have like regular hosts, but of course the main thing is when they would get like an actor to come on or
especially for men's where it makes sense, because this was my concern before we started the podcast, but menswear is all visual, and so what's a way that you can take an entirely visual medium and put it into an audio only format? You talk to people involved in it, and then you're not just describing lapels, which is what we do now, but
yeah, it's like fuck you guys, we're gonna do it anyway.
At the time, I was like, how do we avoid this?
Yeah, David says Handcut Radio is great but stuffy. I mean, that's because I think it's because they're British, but I think that I love all these things. I love listening to Throwing Fits and Blammo and stuff and Handcut Radio. I think they're really great, and they fulfill something else. Like I still want to consume those things, but I don't want to do it myself. If that makes sense, like as you guys, I'm a very picky person. I like to create things. I write film scores. I'm a photographer, so like I like to have my own personal stamp on something. And for the podcast, I was like, no one's talking about clothes the way I want to see it talk about clothes. Just like with the blog, like no one is writing about lapels, but like in the way that like, let's talk about like the bluntedness and how it does this, instead of like, okay, notches are classic and you should do a notch, and if you're feeling fun, you should do a peak. Like I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but let's dive in more into like the era specific stuff and what we like and everything. And my whole thing, I'm not a big fan of, I don't like entrepreneur podcasts. I don't like interview podcasts because I don't, if it's someone I know, just like with just like with any like late show, like if I'm gonna watch like a clip of like Seth Meyers, I'm gonna watch something that has like like fucking like Julie Louis-Dreyfus, someone I know. I'm like, okay, I want to see like what they talk about. Like I don't care if it's someone I don't know, right? And with menswear, it's like, yeah, I mean, as much as I love Blammo and Handcut Radio, like, I mean, the episode with Scott Frazier is great. His stuff with Bruce Boyer, but like, we get some other designers.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't really listen to a lot of menswear podcasts. I listen to Throwing Fits because but even then, it's the same thing with Blammo. It's the same thing with Blammo. I mostly listen to the episodes with people that I know,
or at least tangentially know,
and I'm like interested in hearing from.
Yeah,
and that's just because the podcasts that I listen to, I only listen to podcasts that are funny. It's not just like comedy podcasts, but all the podcasts I listen to are like entertaining.
Element, yeah.
I
was gonna say, so something that I brought up to Spencer the last time, again, unfortunately was lost, but I'm doing it again here. Was that in my mind, I've always wanted to be comedy bang bang, but menswear. And
I can't believe you
and
meant that literally.
I mean, it was something I entertained. I was never gonna do it, but I was like, it would
Yeah.
be funny if like we have to interview Mark Cho, and someone was quote Mark Cho on the podcast.
You would have
And,
gotten fired. I don't know why, but that would have.
yeah, well, it would be all in jest. Like it wouldn't be like making fun, but it would just be like like in my head it would be like a fun like little segment. And of course we always do bits and stuff. We don't do it as we don't. I don't do impressions of Edward people.
Yeah,
But
it's like I mean it's that yeah. You don't want to try that hard.
yeah,
You don't wanna
it's
do
like
that.
like
Pretty
if
sweaty.
you guys haven't seen Call to China, which is again very problematic, but it was like in that kind of vein where like you make a joke and like, hey, tell it to Michael Hill, and someone goes, oh, yeah, I will. Like, hey, Michael Hill, get in here, and then
Just release the fake Mark Cho interview. we keep trying to get the
Hey,
real
we
Mark
tried.
Cho
After
on
I
Twitch.
talked about after we had the stream, this is like back in June, of the Antonio Liverano review, which was not really a review, we just kind of just talked about the film and we loved it. But Mark Cho was like, hey, what time is it? Like it was like at midnight. He goes, hey, did I miss it? I'm like, yeah, I'm about to go to sleep. And he's like, oh, I wanted to join. I'm like, fucking Mark Cho, dude, like get in here. It'd be fun.
Maybe one day.
Maybe yeah, one day. Hey,
and then after we get the real Mark Cho, we'll do the fake Mark Cho every episode.
yeah, I have to listen to him to get to be able to do the cadence of his voice.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I wanted to. I mean, I always knew that I wanted to do like a funnier podcast, a very lighthearted.
I mean,
thing.
initially I was like, this can't just be about menswear. I was like, okay, because you've also talked, oh, we should do like a podcast with our friends, where we goof around or whatever. And I was like, why don't we just do both of those?
Yeah,
the
exactly.
same thing.
Well, I mean, it's also like our friends, like Scott would always and Andrew would like talk about like, oh, we should do an episode, like a podcast where we talk about all the what's it called? What's the fucking guy? Nicolas Cage movies. And they would be like, we should all do that. And I'm like, that's funny. Or like, we should do a thing about all the VeggieTales movies, or the shows.
All the Yu-Gi-Oh episodes.
All the Yu-Gi-Oh episodes, which I'm pretty sure exist or in some form, right? And
there's like 30 of those, I'm sure.
yeah, and it's like no one even did it. And I mean, I think it's fine to do something that people have done before, if because it doesn't really matter. But that's what we did. And obviously, the beginning episodes, it's much more serious in tone. And we do try to, of course, talk about important topics. I think that one of our best ones is like the response to Simon Crompton's panel about dressing up in a dress down world. I think is a really great one that I'm not sure if it did well, but as you guys know, we're not in this for the money. In fact, even back then, and for the past 3 years, basically me and Spencer have worked
tirelessly.
I was gonna say we worked minimum wage jobs, basically, and Spencer probably even less so because he is currently still in college, and so this was always a thing. Like my blog is free on WordPress for a reason. It's not just because like, oh, I want it to be free. It's just because like I'd rather have an extra $20 to $40, paying for hosting or whatever, and for the WordPress account. I'd rather use that on John's than on this website, which already doesn't generate money for me anyway, right? Like I talked about this last time. I already highlighted it, but it was a very like I didn't want to be beholden to like, okay, if we do this way, we have to make sure we do all this stuff. We have to make sure it's all these listens because we have to make sure the advertisers do this, and we have to make sure we get in this money. So
because it's like, I mean, it's like, if you want to do if you want to make real money on like a podcast or a Twitch stream or YouTube, it has to be like a full-time job.
And it also has to be, the content has to be accessible for people to regularly watch and be attractive to advertisers, right? And that's like that's why I get it. Like with Permanent Style, when he did it full time, he has to write articles all the time. Just like Put This On has articles like every day, or at least every 2 days, because eyeballs equals or more articles, popular articles equals eyeballs equals potential money to be made from companies who want to advertise from you. And I did not want to do that, and Spencer didn't want to do that either.
I hate marketing shit. I can't stand
it. And I tell you, dude, like doing the podcast, like doing the socials for podcasts, and I mean, it doesn't take that. Like the post we post, like the announcing each one, that doesn't take a long time. But like when I actually have to like recap stuff, and I'm sure Matt listened to the episode and making the quotations to promote later on, it takes a lot of work, and we're not being paid. We'll we're slowly recuperating from like the stuff that we pay for, like the equipment that we did because of the Patreon. Again, thank you very much. But we would but that was kind of how we wanted to do it, and it took us a long time to kind of get to the Patreon aspect of it, which we'll talk about, you know, later on. But yeah, a lot of the episodes were just done because we wanted to do it, we wanted to talk about it, you know.
And
And
that's why the release schedule was also so weird. I mean, there are other factors, but that was like it was never. I mean, and also like for so long, you know, whenever you start something, you're just kind of screaming into the void.
and we still are.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, but it was like one of these things where like, you know, if we were gonna spend $8 each, because to be totally transparent, you know, the pro plan for SoundCloud is like 15 plus tax, you know, so me and Spencer split that. If we were gonna do that, the podcast had to be something we enjoy doing, something that we're proud of doing. And in the beginning, and even now, all of the topics are something that we've always wanted to talk about, right? And you guys know this. We do, and whatever we don't have time for, we do on the stream because we always talk about it. But but like in the early ones, I worked at Ascot Chang. I started working there. Spencer worked retail, and he went to school, and we were trying to get the handle of like recording it separately. And we knew that, you know, like all the
and
best.
Also,
podcasts
again, the first couple
recorded in
episodes, like the
person.
first couple episodes we did were all interviews. We were leaning heavily on interviews, and so then you had to schedule a third person or a fourth person.
It was very tough, and again, for, you know, I can't reiterate how busy me and Spencer were, you know, and just it's even now, like I started a new job recently, you know, Spencer has to go into work at his other job.
Yeah, it's like, you know, if thank God for COVID, because that's how we're doing a twice a week stream, and you know, 3 episodes a month.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, the blessings in disguise and all that kind of stuff. But you know, like it was always very hard to kind of do this thing. And even then, like I was very concerned when we couldn't start meeting, because like it was exhausting for us to meet in person every single one of these things. Even if we were having our guest that was like, remote, you know, because we've interviewed Aldous, which is one of the most popular episodes. We've interviewed, we did interview Chase of Jay Muser back when he was in Drake's, and that episode is lost. Because also one thing too is that not every guest is very good with technology. It is not,
or just like they don't have access to a lot of equipment, which was the case with our interview with Austin.
Yeah, and we're very lucky that guys like Algis and Kiyoshi and even Jason, like he has, like they have like an actual mic and not just a fucking like like
the
iPhone.
webcam, laptop,
what
microphone.
do you call it? Like,
the headphones, the earbud thing.
Earbud microphone thing, you know. So we're very happy that and Young Chomsky, obviously a podcaster in his own right, has all
in his own right.
But we actually recorded that episode twice because the first time we had audio issues on his end. It was even our fault. It was his fault.
And it's like he said, he's like, I've never experienced that before, which I'm sure he tells.
It was like electrical interference, you know, and it was like
it was weird, yeah.
Yeah, and for those of you, I talked about this last time too, and this is why one reason why last week is very upsetting is because I like to have a very high quality product at all times. You know, you guys know that from the blog, where not only do I work hard, like have like this long written thing. I mean, not great writing isn't there because it's long. It's just for me, it's like I like to over explain things. But in terms of the photography, you know, I think I mentioned this in the Menswear Photography podcast, also in the essay, where a friend of mine, Tim, who I started the blog with, which is fun. That's the story for. There's a podcast episode on that. But he said, no one is going to take you seriously if you take shitty mirror selfies and, you know, and you're into menswear. And that stuck with me like
glue.
Like glue, yeah. Because it was true. Like, it's one of those things where I knew that I wore suits, and that's really weird. Even if we all do it, you know. It was like, you know what? Like, if I have a really good picture, people will at least be able to kind of, you know, accept it in a sense, right? Because like if you have a weird style and you're out and your photo is bad, you're gonna get made fun of more, right? And just like with the Fedora Lounge, because sometimes unfortunately we don't do it, but you know, we've seen a couple of menswear YouTuber guys, alt-right guys like Tanner Guzzi, take pictures of people from like the Fedora Lounge and like roast it on his like Patreon thing.
Oh
Crazy.
man.
That's crazy. Like I mean, we can make jokes,
Yeah.
but like that's kind of like a step too far. And but it's like one of those things where like a lot of those people in Fedora Lounge would like take like really
They
bad.
take bad photos.
I mean, they're having fun. It's fine.
I
but
mean,
it's
it's
just
like the issue is that most people don't know how to take good photos.
Yeah.
I'm not that good at like taking iPhone photos.
Yeah, and I would say
yeah.
that I don't think that the blog would have gotten to where it is, or any of us, and by us I mean me, Spencer, and MJ, would be taken as seriously or have the popularity quotation marks, uh, unless we had really good photography, right? Because like on paper, like a a balding like white guy and a like small Filipino kid wearing like suits and vintage clothing sounds pretty bad. But if you see the pictures, it looks a lot like, oh, okay, these guys are actually interesting. I mean, I'm sure people still make fun of us, but there's a way of making it more palatable. And to bring it back, the podcast was like, you know what? I'm not gonna have a fucking shitty ass podcast where like the audio is super bad, where there's like echoing and stuff. So I, I really wanted everything to be as high quality as possible. Obviously, the first episodes are not like that. We did the best
I
of
mean,
what we
because
had.
we were all we also just were trying to figure it out.
Yeah, but like I think at a certain point, like you guys started getting like you guys enjoy listening to good audio. You guys hear it on the stream as well. Like imagine if we had a stream here that was not like this. Like I don't think people would take us seriously as a stream if I mean, and we only have like 100 followers. This is not. Oh, a girl on TikTok I follow just broke 1,000 on hers.
Hmm.
But it's like one of those things where you just gotta make a good product, and that was really important to me, and we've kept that. We've been able to do it through Patreon, where we got the mic. I've had this mic for a long time, but we got the mic arm. Spencer upgraded his mic and everything. MJ and Kiyoshi have the same mic as well. Bad quality, yeah, the shitty audio. That's
Hey,
what
wait. Speaking of Ethan, do you have your noise suppression thing on? Just want to make sure.
I did. I did it the whole time.
Okay.
Oh,
Whatever. It's
too late. It's fine.
when you it's gonna make a difference if you're recording a podcast, but if you're just streaming audio over Discord, it doesn't sound that much.
It did before though, but I did change the stuff, so I don't know how it's gonna sound. But
It sounded fine. I could tell a little bit, but it's not gonna be bad.
Damn it. Ugh. Yeah, it's because like I think I was watching something and I with Spencer, so I turned noise suppression on so he doesn't hear the echo as much if I didn't. RIP. But yeah, so we tried to do that. And eventually we stopped doing interviews because it just got really hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, that's
also,
what I think when we kind of like after we stopped doing interviews, that's when we were like, okay, we're gonna take a break. We didn't say that, but we just kind of did on accident.
a break.
No, like we just stopped really. That's what we like. Episodes became more infrequent, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, again, it's also because like we had really weird schedules and everything, and you have like tests and everything, right?
Yeah.
So it's like it's really tough. But I think that I personally like it more without the interviews because as the person who writes the blog, it's my blog. I always feel like there's more to say, and I don't want to type everything that I say because I feel like the blog is also for explaining the pictures or like the outfits and everything, and so I wanted to kind of deep dive on these details and talk about it in a candid manner, and we did kind of do that with occasion in our interviews because they would be 2 hours long.
Yeah.
It would be
Very long.
1 hour of interviewing the person about their life, which I
And
personally
their
didn't care much about
style.
because I don't like interviews. And then the second part would be about like a topic that was more like tailored kind of to them, like Austin, for example, a fun one, a good one, a good episode. It's again 2 hours long. It has 1,200 listens, which is great. I'm looking at it right now on Spotify, on SoundCloud, and that one, we talk about him, and it's very important because he likes kind of vintage style. He loves like Edward Sexton, but also Fred Astaire, and you can see it on his style. He's a very cool guy. Works in a very interesting menswear shop in Dallas. And then the second part was talking to him about menswear YouTubers and kind of getting his ideas on that because he has gone to Menfluential for a while. You know, he has talked to not just Gentleman's Gazette, but Real Men, Real Style, and Tony and Alpha M and everything like that. And he's met other guys who are trying to do this whole thing. He doesn't do it as much anymore, obviously, and I think he's kind of moved away from it. But you know, it was fun. But it was one of those things where, like, I wish, you know, like, this is no offense, but like, I wish I could do my little spiel on the menswear YouTubers, like, on my own, you know, because obviously we have a guest, you have to be, you know.
But hey, I think we're probably gonna get that in our influencers episode. I feel like you're gonna devote a segment to that.
Yeah, I know exactly, and this is why, you know, going back to what we do now, you know, 1 hour long, more palatable.
Well, because also we saw in our metrics that people kept dropping out an hour in, and so we're like, okay, that's what people want to listen to.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, I mean, we could have broken. I mean, I don't know how people on TF do it. I mean, I listen to TF like over days. You know, like each episode's like 2 to 3 hours long.
I listen to it when I'm showering. That's.
I do it. Yeah.
Listen to it. Turn off.
Oh yeah, dude. Okay, so here's a hot tip for everybody. Just a Bluetooth waterproof speaker in the shower.
That's right.
Oh God,
so good.
I'm gonna get my brother that for Christmas.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so good. I listen to podcasts all the time in the shower. It's my favorite thing to listen to in the shower. This is an advertisement for podcasts.
No, it's so he could sing in the shower, guys. Get rid of this.
There you go.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's he used waterproof headphones, Jeremy. That's smart. I know my friend Raj, he didn't listen to podcasts, but he would put his phone in a Ziploc bag and bring it to the
I know. People
shower.
I don't that's a trick.
See, that's the
Some people just jack, like, what happened to just jacking it?
Instead of listening to podcasts?
I guess it's like if you just want to do something.
Hey, they're not mutually exclusive, okay?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. You can listen to TF and jack off, and then get both fixes on there. Oh, actually, technically,
fix takes on a different meaning.
yeah. I actually did just realize this. I mean, that brings watching porn in the shower to a new level if you have Bluetooth headphones, because then you get the real, like, you don't have to just look at it and have like this. I can't hear this what's happening because of the sound.
Here's my idea.
But,
Take
there you go. Why do you think we listen? There you go, Jeremy.
Here's my idea. Take a headset and put it in a plastic bag, a VR headset, and then wear that in the shower.
That's
now you can have virtual.
Yeah, that's
VR porn in the shower.
VR chat in the shower.
Just take faster showers if it comes to that.
Yeah,
because the setup.
might as well experience the real deal or whatever.
Yeah.
Get out of the shower quicker.
Because the setup is like.
What a fucking segment. Okay,
You gotta get and you have like 3 cameras for full body tracking. I don't think any VR porn apps use.
You put the sensor on your belt for your waist movement.
Yeah, I got that big brain. Hell yeah, I do.
If you guys haven't seen what VR porn is like, you guys gotta watch the Michael Bolton Big.
Oh, I thought you were just gonna say you need to watch.
You should just watch it.
No, the Michael Bolton.
Go to your local Microsoft store and ask to preview like whatever they sell there.
Just be like, Cyber Monday is coming up, so check out.
Go to Best Buy. Yeah.
Yeah. But Michael Bolton. Valentine's Day special. It's on Netflix. Let's watch it. It's pretty funny. There's a good segment with Chris
Sponsored by Netflix.
Sponsored by Earwolf. Oh yeah, that brings a good thing too. So when you know the podcast, one important thing was, you know, like Spencer said, we wanted to make jokes, and you guys know that we do lots of jokes and we keep it going.
Everybody knows that we do jokes. We're the jokingest podcast of all time.
That's right.
The Webbies called us that in 2018.
I respect people too much. Okay, so one thing here too is like, so like if I were to have like Mark Cho or Michael Hill on the podcast, you know, it's always even while Blammo or Hank Rated, it's always so entrepreneurial. You know, it's like, oh, what's your story with this? How did you start the business? How do you approach buying? And I think that's great. But no one's saying, hey, Mark Cho, I noticed that you like you love like Taylor Cade. Do you see a similarity between doing that and doing a jacket from Antonio Liverano? Like what's the connection there?
Because I
Is
mean,
there
yeah, because all the it makes sense if you're listening to this podcast. It's like, you know, an influencer podcast from the standpoint of like, oh, these people are going to teach me how to build my business. But if you're someone like me, who the idea of running a business stresses them out greatly and never wants to do it, I don't give a shit. So.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's also like one of those things where I don't want to start my own business.
Yeah.
Other than, I mean, I guess the podcast technically is kind of one now with Patreon, but like, you know, we're not going to be, you know, we have our very faithful like 25 to 30 people in it. If it gets bigger, that's great. If it doesn't, that's fine too. We're here to, you know, do the streams and make podcasts and everything like that. We don't have to move out and go to New York like Young Chomsky. But you know, when it came to these guests, like I want to ask more deeper questions about style, right? Like I want to know how, like, Michael Hill, when he made the point collar shirt, like what is the deal with that? Like, is it like a 70s
What's the
thing? Is
deal?
it Thanks, Jerry. Is it like a, because I think the first time I saw it was like a button-down collar without the buttons, right? I think I told this to like Spencer as soon as, like, when I was in Drake's in London, I saw that and I was like, shit, that's what it is. And it's true when you look at a spear point collar and an OCBD, the collar, like the shape and like the curves are very similar.
Yeah.
If you just took out the button. And I want to ask stuff about that, but
Well,
you know,
yeah.
Alex Petkovich wouldn't ask that. You know, I mean, maybe
He's too much
would.
fancy to ask questions like that.
You know, but it's like I want to, you know, I want to ask, like, you know, stuff like that, like what made you decide on that, like that gorge height, you know, like or with the army, like what's the selective process between like Optimo, like, you know, like would you, like, what's like the shape of the Optimo Panama hats that you guys have, like why is that the shape that the armor
Well,
chose?
because I mean, this is also something that like you've had that, you know, draft for years. That's like, you know, that you care more about. You care a lot more about design than other people who talk about. It's like, oh, I mean, obviously we care about like well-made things, but when other people talk about, it's like, oh, this is so finely crafted or whatever. That we don't think of that as the end all be all.
Yeah, it's always about like the details, you know, because again, for us, details create vibes and aesthetics that I understand that many like a lot of people don't do that. Like when Drake's is doing something, I can't. I'm just speaking, you know, off the top of my head, but like they're probably making what they think is the most classic thing a guy can wear. It is not meant to point to a certain era. It's just this is their idea of the ideal, right? I think Anglo-Italian is a good example of that. I should have went with that one. Don't know why I didn't, but that's the answer. You know, that's just what Jake and Alex and the rest of the team decided on. Just like with a bespoke tailor, right? That is what they decided on. But when you're not a designer, when you're not a business owner, and you're a consumer, you have taste, and I want to know about that, like that entire taste. And for me and Spencer, it's like, okay, we can enjoy an Edward Sexton suit and a Taylor Cade suit because they create a different vibe.
Yeah.
They're not like they're equal in the sense that like I could wear one and then the other one the next day because of the vibe. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna be this customer because I want to wear the best in menswear. It's like that's not.
I mean, it's like we also have like a weird just way of thinking about. I don't
Yeah,
know. I think we have I think that we do specifically have a unique perspective, because when you come into classic menswear from true 1930s and 40s vintage
period accurate.
that gives you like a weird broken fashion brain where now you're like, okay, you're like, we still abide by all these weird 1930s like fashion trends.
Yeah, like, you know, like again, like Kiyoshi. I mean, we were talking about this like one of the first times Kiyoshi was there. We were talking about like fucking like casual jacket length, right? We're like, oh, it's gotta end right there because if it goes too far, it's just weird, you know. And we realize that, but like, I want to really, I love pushing people to kind of drill down on like their roots, you know. And I think that if I could just get someone to say, like, you know, like if Michael Hill would be like, you know what, I really like the kind of like the late 60s 70s approach to Ivy, you know, that way people could know that. I think that's important. I think that maybe that's what my goal would be if we had an interview. I think I kind of had that a little bit with Young Chomsky. I'm trying to push on like why the milsurp with this, like why is it Ivy, right? Like why is it like that particular look? Because I know that there are other, you know, there are people who are like us, who are, you know, socialists or left-leaning menswear guys who wear like Italian tailoring, you know, as opposed to like Ivy stuff, you know. But I think that with Young Chomsky, there's clearly this kind of like, you know, old not idealistic, but like the kind of like Noam Chomsky in the '60s or Bernie in the '60s, right? Like they're wearing ivy, just connect with him, and I think that's cool, and I kind of want that, and people don't typically talk about that on podcasts. Obviously, like we said, Blammo doesn't really get there. Handcut Rated doesn't, and that's fine. But if we did do interviews again regularly, I would love to kind of go and be able to kind of
Yeah.
drill on that. And that's kind of why we dive deep on like, okay, the bucket hat. Yeah, it's cool, it's practical, but like, okay, it has like this kind of hippie thing, or like let's talk about like my bucket hat, right? Because I think the podcast tend to lean into kind of what our YouTube would be like if we talked about like, oh, our picks for this, but like our rationale, like Spencer said, are way different than a typical like fashion YouTuber or whatever would decide on.
Exactly.
But yeah, we'll see what happens next year.
Yeah.
It would be great to have interviews back on here, and like I said, like
I mean, I think infrequent interviews.
yeah, and it's also
But that'll happen occasionally.
yeah, and I was gonna say also that we I like talking to people who may not be as big. Obviously, like that's why we have all this.
Well, I don't remember if we talked about this last week, but yeah, we the other thing is like there's a like menswear like interview circuit where like every menswear podcast talks the same, like
Sid Mashburn.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, okay, we could do that, but like you were already interviewed by like 7 other people this year.
Yeah, which is why and it's also one of those things like I like David says yes, he would like the interviews to return.
Well, I mean, like we don't. Yeah, it's like we're not anti-interview. It's once again,
it's incredibly hard to do. Like we're not in New York where Blammo is, so we don't get to have people on here, and other people have day jobs. I have a day job at least for until the end of the year. Spencer is again a student. MJ is a student. We're a lot younger than the rest of these guys. Yeah, the logistics must be a pain.
Yeah.
It definitely is. Which is why I'm glad we're able to do the stream twice a week. Thankfully, again, I give my thanks to Spencer and MJ and Matt, who on a school night and on a weekend.
Hey man, fucking nothing. Time don't read.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm just saying. You could be doing some
Yeah.
other things, and I was gonna say like I think that's one reason why we started doing the streams, to have like more content for you guys, and have kind of more open discussions with people who are not just me and Spencer, obviously. But yeah, the logistics are a pain, and again, we would love to do these things more. I think it's not outside the realms of possibility if things were able to calm down. Well, apparently New York is better than California. With the Patreon stuff, the guys were talking, if we got enough contributions, which we probably could, which I could go to New York and do interviews or whatever stuff there. And of course, yeah, like Mark chose there, Jim Parker from the Armory, which I would love to have too. But there are guys like in the Discord, like Shane, who are there. Jason is there. Dave Fugel.
I mean, like I don't know, like what one of the things that we thought would be cool when we were a more interview-based podcast was we're going to talk to all our friends that own small shops in LA.
Yep.
I don't know. I think it would be cool, like, to talk to like the guy that owns like I'm just naming the big ones that we've been to, but like Front General or like Church Street, like interview that sweet old man, or like stuff like that. That could be fun. Maybe not like full interviews, but I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it, and then again, for me, I love drilling down on people's specific tastes, and this is gonna be out. This is a very Scott Ackerman thing to do, but one of the best analyses I've heard, if you can call it that, of Comedy Bang Bang is that Scott Ackerman doesn't care about his guests. He just waits around for them to say "my wife," and that is definitely me, because I like we talked about the menswear circuit. Like I don't really care about your life story. I care about the specific tie you picked out to wear that day. I care about
talk about the clothes, baby.
Yeah, talk about the clothes. Or for me, it's like or even then, like I want people to be able to make jokes, and I feel like this probably won't happen. Like if we ever had Sid Mashburn on there, and he was like, "Yeah, my wife," and I'll probably go, "My wife," and he would be like, "What?" And he would give me a weird look. I probably wouldn't do that, but
probably not. I hope not. That would be. We would have to cut that from the episode. It would just be awkward.
Yeah, unless you laughed, I think which would be hilarious if you did.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I would ever take that chance. But it's it's one of those things where, um, I would love if the guest would get the vibe, and the best way to do that is when we interview our friends, who I actually this is why for me my blog, I make a big point to shoot whoever I'm with, menswear, not just anybody, but of course, like, we're MJ is with us at a menswear event. MJ isn't as into it, or at least before wasn't as into it as me and Spencer, but he's important to this canon that I'm quote curating about like what menswear is like and what our friendship is like. And so I think that's a more important story of like how a computer science guy that I've been friends with for 20 years or even longer, 24 years. I don't know when, maybe we're 1 year old. I don't know. But like how he decided at the end of the day to like, okay, I'm gonna buy this LL Bean vest
Ethan shoots
and
people at the
and
speaker.
wear that, and or wear this thrifted sack jacket that I gave him and wear it in a way that was different than I thought of. I think that's a more important thing than this person who has been shot by the sartorialist that's been shot by a thousand-yard style who everyone will
These people can't stop getting away with it.
It can't
Yeah.
keep getting away.
They can't keep
So-
getting away with it.
Yeah. But like that's kind of my thing, like I would love to
Yeah.
interview like Ryan Cecil, who is again a great trad dresser that Kiyoshi knows, that Spencer and MJ knows. I think that getting in his head and what he likes to wear is cool. Like, when I see him wear, his suit, his made to measure suits from P. Johnson, and his pockets are stuffed with like Copic markers, so he can do like a fucking like immediate illustration when he's bored. I think that's so cool, and I think we should talk about like that and like how he doesn't really think about stuff like that. Like I don't really need to interview fucking Bruce Boyer to get that kind of thing, because Bruce Boyer already has a podcast dedicated to him and he's been on Blammo and everything. So, me talking about my friends is supremely important, and that's what I want to do if we bring back interviews. And which Spencer and I did. There's why we have Aldous, we had Derek,
Mhm.
we had the Gooch brothers, who might be the most prolific people we've interviewed outside of Young Chomsky. And the Young Chomsky energy, I think, is a good example of like the good balance between silliness and important topics like politics and also personal style.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you guys are into that, please do consider giving us to on Patreon. We are, again, we're pretty open with what we do here. Again, like I said, we told you how much the podcast costs in the terms of just hosting. That's how much it is. That does not go into the work that we do planning this. That does not go into creating the socials and writing that. It doesn't go into the work MJ does editing these. It does not go into the time that Matt goes into for creating the outlines, because as Spencer and I have said before, or maybe last week, I don't know, when we record an episode, we typically forget about it. We don't really remember the outline. I mean, I do, because I write companion pieces and everything, but we don't create hard outlines. We kind of just talk, as you guys can hear. So there's a lot
Can
of
you
work that
hear?
goes into it, and we like to we've upgraded a lot of stuff. Obviously Spencer did not have a Yeti blue mic, sorry, the blue mic, until like July. I didn't have a mic arm. All the earlier streams have me very kind of faint because I had to like hold my mic or whatever, or it was just kind of too far. But if you guys want us to do some more stuff, feel free to contribute to us on Patreon, and we'll do our best to continue this kind of stuff. It sucks that it's happening during COVID, but when things happen, open up, we would love to travel and interview people, and bring new kinds of stuff to you guys. What's the deal with the private Discord? That's because we need to have something to give to our patrons. That is why, because our streams are open, you know what I mean? And the bonus episode are typically not as menswear focused. They're more, we still, like much as we want, or as I said, I want to have something where my friends and I are just talking and there's some menswear sprinkled in, and that's what the bonus episodes are, at least with the most recent one. And we felt that it would be bad to kind of have a Patreon with nothing to give people.
Yeah.
And that's why the Discord exists. We would love to have it. Oh, what do people get out of it? It's where we talk. There's like 30 guys in it. It's popping. It's very fun to be a part of.
Oh,
There's
I've got an answer for Scoops here. I've got an answer
yeah,
for
go ahead.
Scoops. So Scoops, if you're a fan of Drake's, and you wanted to get the inside scoop of accessing the Drake's sample sale before anyone else did by about 12 hours, to have your first pick, you should have been on our private
That was
Discord.
crazy.
That's right.
That was
We did
crazy.
that. We were the first dozen orders on that Drake sample sale before they even let it go live to the general public. So that's the kind of shit you get
That's right.
in
That's
private
right.
Discord.
Absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Also, there's great fit picks.
Great fit
And
picks.
yeah,
I mean, and
we play
also,
video games together sometimes.
we play video games together
yeah.
in
There's
there.
Among Us in game chat. If you want to do Among Us and
We're
talk
talking,
shit.
yeah, it's like, yeah. Again, I'm sure Jeremy can also talk about it too. You know, again, it is our DMs are like, if you want to talk to me, Spencer, directly, like our DMs are open. Mine more often because I'm on social media more than Spencer.
That's right. And also, as I can't text or message people and do other things.
Scoops might be joining tonight.
Oh
It's-
shit! Well, there you go.
First off,
Dude,
I
it's-
want to say,
it's
when
fine.
you get a
less than
real
the price of
job,
a beer.
I do want to say that if you work, like, if you're working at like a mall or minimum, like, you can save your money. It's totally fine to save up when you're in a more safe position. Again, we were in this, like, we were little in this phase. I didn't have a job the entire pandemic. You know, like, I was and still, I think I still do get some money from unemployment because I'm currently part-time and not confirmed. I have a part-time job till December 15th. Fingers crossed. Temporarily. So I understand. Like, I just want, like, you know, we'll be here. We will still be streaming. We will still be doing stuff. Because we, like, I already made a thing about this, but maybe I can delete that and make this instead. But we, you know, we like doing this, and we were fine before making, you know, spending $15 or so and also hours of our lives making this stuff for you guys, and for our friends and everything, for the past 3 years. And if that's not going to change, we have more dedication to bring it more regularly now. And you know, it's one of those things where maybe it was a little bit of pride, at least for me, it was a little bit of pride, but you know, the fact that, you know, the 30 or so guys are in here that were happy with giving us $5 a month just because, you know, most of these guys are people that we were friends, or at least like 15 of these guys are people we were already friends with, who we already talked to quite regularly. But the fact that we have this now has been really cool. And you know, these guys are the people who want us to go to New York, right? Who want us to kind of go to these places and hopefully make a sad head meetup in the future. And we probably wouldn't get there if we didn't have regular contributors, right? You know, and Spencer would probably still have a regular old gaming mic, you know,
Yep.
and stuff like that. And so, and the Discord is a way for us to, you know, again, it's not a big service, but it's a fun thing that we've kind of created, this little community that has been great. I know that some people talk about some personal stuff in there that, you know, we're always happy to be friends, and I think that having a space to discuss stuff like this and also, you know, talk about the election or talk about personal life and everything like that is great. And you know, one of the questions we did a couple of weeks ago, when a guy Joris was asking how you make menswear friends in real life, the answer is maybe it's kind of hard to do that in real life, but there's nothing wrong with the internet, and hopefully the Discord gets bigger and becomes a great place that people can, you know.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree with you. There's a lot wrong with the internet, but go ahead and make friends there.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we would love to have you, Scoops. I think it'd be fun. I mean, we're in it right now. You know, there's 4 of us here. They're currently, you know, there's stuff, people talking about stuff and everything. But yeah, that's thank you for 3 years of your support. I can tell Ethan has worked in sales. Yeah, dude, I worked in Banana Republic.
He was pushing khakis.
Yeah, pushing those Aiden Fit khakis, which they don't make anymore. They don't make. I still
They're
own.
sold out. They're sold out because you sold
That's
too
right.
many.
I think that retail or any kind of service job is something that people should have at least once of in their lives. I started it quite late, because again, as some of you guys know, I graduated from high school and college quite early. But yeah, I think it's tough out there, man. Like, I'm happy to. I'm very blessed to live at home. We're gonna have it also. Speaking of hot topics, we're gonna be having an episode about money.
Money.
In December, kind of more in the same vein of like the cost of menswear, the cost of doing all this stuff, from being literal. Like I live at home, and some of our friends also. Well, I guess some of our friends in California live at home, and it's tough. If you're working sales, minimum wage, even commission, and even for me, Ascot Chang, we didn't have a lot of customers, and we usually had one at a time, and it's not really easy to have commission on that, So because the answer is the senior person who the client already knows will take that commission because he's there for that person, So I definitely understand the point about being frugal, and I think that you should do what it takes to survive, um, and yeah. Oh yeah, speaking of Jeremy, shout out.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, join in his Movember.
Yeah.
That he set up. I believe this. I believe he set one up for Style and Direction. So if anyone wants to,
I contribute.
So this is one for Jeremy specifically. Yeah, and then there's the Style and Direction one. So there you go.
There you go. I think that this is again very important, and we're gonna go play some video games now, and feel free to ask us more questions because we will still be looking at this. And Kiyoshi's here. Feel free to ask Kiyoshi questions too. I mean, hey, not very often
I'm watching the chat, so
there you go. Chat moderator. But thank you guys for 3 years. I know that this is we had this almost exact. Well, we didn't have a chat last time because people just fucking left when they couldn't hear audio. But we did this last week. But I'm glad we were able to do it again because I'm glad that you guys here, Scoops, Jeremy, David, Takeover, everyone in here. I'm glad you guys were able to join us for this. And yeah. Yeah, maybe one of the things we do in the future is Ethan gets a gaming computer with Patreon, so we can actually make more content.
So they're not paying. Okay, I mean, I guess if they're paying to see you play video games on stream, but
we would be waiting for a while.
Use the Patreon to buy you things. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, because it'd be cool to have more. I mean, okay, so like some background earlier too. I can talk about this time was like I used to edit the podcast myself, back in the day, before MJ so graciously took away that arduous task, the burden. And so like I mean I it's one of these things where like I am perfectly capable of doing some of this stuff, but I miss creating stuff too, and it'd be cool if I could get back in there. I can't do it on just a laptop, and my PC laptop has limitations. But yeah, it'd be cool. It'd be cool to see if I have a fully functioning like desktop computer, like MJ and Spencer. What more could we bring you? Who knows?
Incredible stuff.
Incredible stuff. But yeah, thank you for that. I'm gonna write this down as 118, baby.
And I'm gonna take this opportunity to go to the bathroom.